The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. I'm going to go through my ritual start. Every day I go to the internet and I find whatever news I can about energy and climate change, and every piece that I find that is interesting, I put together a 55-word synopsis and a link to the original article, and then I package 10 to 15 of these together and put them up at my blog. One post going up every day. I've been doing this for over 6 years, so I've got 6 years worth of posts every day.
Got a few posts. Yeah.
Got a few. Over 20.
A tera posts.
over 2,200 posts and over 28,000 links. And these articles, we get together. We get a group of about 21 of them usually, because it's usually about 3 a day. And Tom and I talk about the ones that are interesting on this show, which is recorded on Thursday morning. So if you want to, if you hear about an article and you want to get more information on it, you can go to the blog, which is geoharvey.com, and geoharvey.com, and you can look. You click on the date. We'll try to tell you the dates of the shows. Click on the date and you'll find a group of about 15 shows, among which you should find the show you're interested in.
Well, some of these are well worth looking up.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of information in some of them.
There's some good stuff this week. There really is.
Yeah, we do have some good ones this week.
Yeah, we do.
I'll try and call attention
to
them.
We should start, don't you think?
I think it'd probably be a good idea.
It would be a good idea. You don't start unless you start. Okay, we've got a picture here of the Beaver Creek Wind Farm and an article from Clean Technica.
Where is my picture?
Where's your picture? There it is.
There it is.
Okay, and there's the picture for the audience. Got a title?
U.S. wind capacity surpasses 90 gigawatts as record construction levels continue.
Where are you? This is Mid-American.
Huh?
Mid-American.
Well, I'm on the wrong. I got to start from the beginning. Here we go.
There you go.
This looks more like it's supposed to look. Mid-American Energy's 2 gigawatt Wind 11 barrels forward in Iowa.
Mid-American Energy's 2 gigawatt Wind 11 project continues to roll out across Iowa, with new announcements confirming another 341 megawatts of capacity in the Arbor Hill and Ivester wind farms. Last May, Mid-American Energy announced that it intends to be the first investor-owned electric utility in the U.S. to meet 100% of its demand with renewable power.
It's interesting. Mid-American has just announced Wind 12, so we're talking about Wind 11. And that's going to be 600 megawatts.
This is Warren Buffett. This is an investor who knows what he's doing.
They're going to put it online in 2020.
Yep. And you know, there's another thing too. I don't think it was in this article. Maybe it was one of the other articles this week, but I think it was not. I came across an article that indicated that somebody had done a study of people who live either near wind farms or not. And
we talked about that one, I think.
Where the people who live near wind farms, the percentage of people who live near wind farms that would approve an increase in the size of the wind farm they live near is greater than the percentage of people who don't live near wind farms.
I remember reading that.
It's an interesting thing to me that tells me that people who live near wind farms and are accustomed to them are far less annoyed by them or turned off by them than.
Yeah, it's fear of the unknown.
Yeah, it is. It is. But this thing is Warren Buffett. Mid-American is a Berkshire Hathaway company.
Yeah.
And the other Berkshire
Hathaway. He knows what he's doing.
He does. The other, well, at least he has in the past so far. Should we go on?
Yeah, if I can get this thing going, yeah.
There you go. We've got an article from the Jamestown Foundation.
Beijing bids to extend its global energy lead. Now, this is a good article.
It is.
This is a very informative article.
Yep. China has firmly established itself as the world's dominant manufacturer of clean energy technologies. It has been the largest producer of solar PVs for over a decade. Economically and strategically, China is well set to benefit from the global shift toward renewable energy technologies.
Well, China now accounts for half of all solar manufacturing globally.
Yeah.
And it leads in wind turbine and lithium-ion battery production.
Yep.
So they're getting on top of things.
It
it lags in offshore development.
Yes, and they are moving into that very rapidly.
That's what this article says.
Yep. And one of the things that I find interesting is that they are the leaders in lithium-ion technology.
Yep.
And we tend to think about Elon Musk and Tesla being leaders. They are leaders,
yeah,
but they're not as big as China.
Well, China's got a national strategy.
They sure do.
And they're investing in and acquiring overseas companies, overseas power companies.
I got news for you. I think they're investing in and acquiring overseas countries.
Well, that's true too.
I mean,
we take them over; they invest.
Yeah, they are. This is worth noting. The article doesn't dwell on this, but they are using renewable power, which they lead in, as a shoe-in for, a foot in the door, I guess is a better expression, for getting military and commercial
Access.
Access, yes. Yeah. In places, Sri Lanka was one place. They're signing agreements with countries in Latin America and Africa like mad. And the United States, having withdrawn from, if the Obama administration had been running and hurricanes Irma or Maria hit the Caribbean, we would have been down there helping the people in Dominica and the Dominican Republic and places like that. But because it was the Trump administration, he didn't want to put American dollars into that area. Mm-hmm. Somebody had to help those people recover, and guess who it was? Well, we're talking about China here. So, of course, what happens? You neglect your friends go to other friends, and now both Dominica and the Dominican Republic have got agreements with China, which includes, in at least one of those cases, a military agreement.
Well, it seems what they're doing is they're lending them money, they're lending them aid,
yep.
And in lieu of paying it back, they say, well, okay, we'll build a harbor here for our ships.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Which a lot of people really like because it gets people employed. But, it's...
So we're doing similar things, but we're going about it differently. We're doing it more forcefully. The Chinese are a little more sneaky about it.
I don't think we're advancing our position at all. It's like we're abandoning NATO. Certainly our NATO partners believe that we're abandoning NATO.
I think so.
And China is building together something that looks a little bit like NATO, except that it's spread all over the entire globe.
Yeah.
And the thing that it's trying to deal with is the disinterestedness of the United States. So, what do you say about that? I don't know.
Let's move on.
Okay, Wisconsin Gazette is next.
Enforcement of corporate wrongdoing declines dramatically in Trump's first year.
This is depressing.
It is kind of.
Federal enforcement of corporate wrongdoing declined badly during Donald Trump's first year in office, analysis from Public Citizen and Government Watchdog shows. A prime example is the EPA, where the report said penalties during Trump's first year dropped 94%. They dropped to 6% of what they had been. From $23 billion during Obama's last year to $1.4 billion during Trump's first year.
And something's going on here.
Well, the thing that bothers me about this is that part of the thing that bothers me about this is it means that environmental regulations are not being
exactly
enforced,
what's happening.
which means people are getting sick, people are dying, the environment is being trashed. But on top of that, And it seems to go entirely counter to what you would think a conservative Republican would feel. And in fact, I think it is entirely counter to what a conservative Republican would feel, is the fact that this represents tax revenues.
Yeah.
If you're going to drop your revenues from 23 billion to 1.4, you're going to have to raise $21.6 billion in taxes.
Either that or cancel programs, which is what I think they want to do.
Programs are already canceled.
I'm talking about programs that help the poor.
Well, yeah, I know that. Okay, do you have more?
Not well. I got a quickie.
Yeah.
In 10 of the 12 agencies they studied here, the number of penalties imposed on corporate violators declined.
10 of 12.
10 of 12. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Okay, we are up to Friday, July 27th.
Yeah, we got a nice picture.
I probably forgot to say that we were starting on Thursday, July 26th.
We got a nice picture.
Oh, we do
here.
indeed.
Yeah.
There it is.
There we go. Let's try to get that.
Let's
up.
get it up there.
That's the Grand Canyon.
That is the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, nice picture of it.
It's a nice picture of it. There's an echo in this room.
And this goes along the same thing, kind of a different aspect of what we've just been talking about. Top interior officials ordered parks to end science policy.
Policy enacted in the final weeks of the Obama administration elevated the role of science for decision making and emphasized that parks should take precautionary steps to protect natural and historic treasures. Newly released emails show how that policy was rescinded. Now, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Does this mean that they're not going to protect the Statue of Liberty from rising seas?
I would guess. Yeah, I would guess. I haven't heard anything about the statue, but if there are rising seas, I think Lady Liberty's in trouble.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, that, by the way, is from PRI.
Well, from the article, what this means to the national parks is they can be more welcoming to drones, jet skis, and private companies that want to build luxurious accommodations.
There you go. It means that if you want to go to a national park and enjoy the national park as a national park,
yeah,
you're going to have to deal with jet skis and off-road vehicles. But on the other hand, some of the states will still have good parks that we can go to.
Some of them, yep.
We have good parks in Vermont, and as far as I know, none of them is a federal park.
Well, Green Mountain National Park is...
that's a national park, yeah.
It's not much of a park. It's a preserve, really. But,
yeah. And I think people do logging in there.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
yeah, they can log.
Okay. Our next item is from The Advocate, still Friday, July 27th.
Tasmania sitting in clean power top spot.
Projections by the Green Energy Market's June Renewable Energy Index shows that Tasmania will be producing 99.6% of the power it consumes with renewables in less than 2 years. If the projects in Tasmania's pipeline are all built, it will produce over 120% of the power it needs and become an exporter.
Well, for those who don't know much about Tasmania, it's an Australian state.
Yeah.
It's also an island off the
southeast
coast
yeah.
of Australia.
And it's big. It's at
least
state.
as big as South Carolina. It might be bigger than that.
It is the smallest of the actual states in Australia, but there's
they
not
got some
very
big
many
states.
states there. The only thing that's of that level of consequence that is smaller is the Australian Capital Territory.
The Capital Territory, right.
And Tasmania was in the news a lot in energy a year or two ago because the link that they had to the mainland, which was an submarine cable,
the cable, yeah.
long cable, broke.
Uh-huh.
And so they had no energy being imported from the mainland for a long time. So they had to face the fact that they had to...
They're vulnerable.
They're vulnerable. And what they decided to do was not just to fix the cable, but to put in a second cable possibly, and on top of that, to build up as much as they could their renewable energy resources.
Well, that's what this article's about.
That's what this is about. And what will happen is they will wind up being exporting electricity to the state of Victoria, and that'll give them an ability to make a certain amount of money. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, I think we could.
That was from the Advocate. Our next one is from the Omaha World Herald, and we have a picture here.
Got a picture here. Yeah, let's get this one up.
The Grand Prairie Wind Project. There you go.
OPPD Partners Wind Power Project will continue utility renewable energy growth. That's a mouthful, isn't it?
I guess it is.
Now, if you want to know what OPPD is, I think George is about to tell you.
Yes, I am. Once a new private wind power project in Nebraska comes online in late 2019, Omaha Public Power District, that's OPPD, their renewable portion of their energy mix will make up 40% of what they use. The figure was less than 20% in 2016. And, you know, this is just one more case of the switchover to renewable energy, like the thing that we were just talking about in Tasmania. It is remarkably fast when it happens. And
well,
it can be.
You can put up a wind turbine, or you can put up a solar panel a lot faster than you can put up a nuclear plant.
I guess. What was the plant that they spent 40 years building it? There was one that came online just...
that doesn't ring a bell, but that's a little bit longer than they usually take.
Yeah, there was one that they started putting it up, and then they decided it was uneconomical, so they stopped building it.
They stopped working on it.
And then they took parts of it out.
Was that Vodal?
I think it was.
Yeah.
They started taking parts out of it. So then they decided they needed it after all, so they started building it again. And then they stopped building and started taking parts out.
That sounds like Vodal, yeah.
I think it was Vodal, yeah. Okay.
Well, what this came from the article.
Yeah.
It's going to boast OPPD's amount of wind energy to 971 megawatts, which is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's enough to power about 125,000 homes.
Which is a lot.
Well, Vermont has 250,000 homes.
So this is one thing would be powering half
of Vermont.
Yep.
And they're also building a 35-acre, 5-megawatt solar array, which is a significant one.
It's significant.
Not huge, but significant.
Yeah, but one of the things to bear in mind there is that when when the sun is shining, the wind is not usually very strong.
They seem to be complementary, don't they?
They're complementary. Yeah. You throw a battery in and you've got, basically...
You're set.
You are actually, if you've got it planned right. Okay, we're up to Saturday, July 28th, and we're right here in
picture here.
Well, it's not exactly River City; it's Mountain City.
We've seen this picture before.
We have indeed. I was hoping I'd sneak it by you, but you got it.
It's an interesting article. It's local.
Yep.
It's something you might really want to look up.
Well, actually, it's interesting for anybody, regardless of where they are.
Yeah, but it's particularly interesting if you buy your power from Green Mountain.
Yep. This is from Clean Technica. Green Mountain Power, by the way, for anybody who's unaware of it, supplies about 3/4 of the electricity in Vermont.
A network of Tesla Powerwall batteries saves Green Mountain Power $500,000 during a heat wave.
Green Mountain Power is using a virtual power plant, including 2,000 Tesla Powerwall batteries in homes across Vermont to beat the heat. The system saved GMP $500,000 in just 1 week this month as temperatures soared into the 90s. Now,
they got a deal going.
They do. This was a great deal. We talked about it about a year ago.
Yeah.
And the deal was that Green Mountain Power, a Tesla Powerwall battery cost $5,000.
Well, it's higher than that now.
It cost $1,500 to put it in.
Okay.
And Green Mountain Power, this $6,500 thing, the investment that you would make if you wanted a Tesla Powerwall in your home, they would put in the Tesla Powerwall for the 2,000 people who would sign up. Mm-hmm. at a price of $1,500
Exactly.
if you wanted to buy it. But if you didn't want to buy it, you could lease it for $15 a month.
Okay.
And the reason this was so cheap was because part of the deal was that they could take power out of that battery
And put power in it.
and put power in
Yep.
at their discretion.
Yep.
Which there were certain things there that would protect people against, power being lost that they would need. But nevertheless, what this meant was when the price of power goes up because the demand is up because people are running air conditioners, they can draw power out of those batteries and put it back in at night.
Yeah.
And
they do very well.
They do very well. That saved them $500,000. There's one thing that I don't think appeared in this article, as I recall, and that is the amount of money Green Mountain Power spends in transmission charges is based on the maximum load that
They mention that in the article.
Do they? Okay,
Yeah.
good. I had forgotten.
It's a significant charge. It's the worst. I think the worst half hour or worst hour for the year.
Of the year.
Yeah.
The highest price for the year is
Yeah.
what sets this, is what this thing is based on. And of course, with 2,000 of these batteries in, which are 13.5 kilowatts each, that's a significant amount of power that they can draw down, and they don't have to pay that they don't.
That special charge.
It reduces that price.
Yeah.
So it reduces the price of electrical power for everybody they serve for the entire year.
So it's kind of a win-win for them.
It is, yes. The only people who lose out on it are the people who run the transmission system. And I don't think they're particularly worried about it, to tell you the truth.
So. Good takeaway here.
Yeah.
This right from the article. Distributed energy is the future.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Green Mountain Power is modeling today how a well-run utility will operate tomorrow.
Yes.
Hear, hear.
And actually, Mary Powell had said her job, she's the CEO of Green Mountain Power, her job is to come up with a new business plan, and that is what she is doing.
And that's what she's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not operating like a traditional utility.
Okay. Our next item is probably, I think, if it isn't the most important item of the week, it may be, but it's from the Des Moines Register. It's at DesMoinesRegister.com.
The owner of Iowa's lone nuclear power plant plans to shutter it by 2020.
All right.
By the way, if you want to look at this, there's a couple of interesting pictures of turbines.
Yes.
They're installing some turbines using about a half a dozen of these huge cranes.
Yes. Yep.
So it's an interesting article.
It's an interesting article. Next Era Energy, owner of the Duane Arnold Energy Center, says it will retire the nuclear plant in late 2020, 5 years earlier. Alliant Energy, the plant's largest customer, has agreed to pay Next Era $110 million to shorten its agreement so it can switch to wind power to save money.
So they're paying $110 million.
So they can get out of
Yeah.
paying for a nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
Now this tells you something about the relative value of wind power versus nuclear power. They are getting out, they're bailing on a nuclear power plant to the tune of $110 million so that they can switch to wind. And what is Next Era Energy, the owner, going to do? Well, they already know, because they have already tried to find a customer for that power. They're not going to find the customer. So what are they doing? They're spending $650 million building wind projects in Iowa.
Uh-huh.
So this is something which is going to be doing a lot of people a lot of good, because $650 million in wind projects is going to hire a lot of people in construction. And then, that also means that the state is going to have that much more wind power.
Again, a takeaway from the article. Low-cost natural gas
Yep.
and the declining costs of renewable energy, such as wind and solar, have created challenges for nuclear.
Yep.
And we've talked about that.
We have indeed. But when people talk about low-priced natural gas,
Yeah.
I want to put, every time I hear that these days, I'm starting to say, well, we should put a flag up on that, because natural gas use of natural gas for generating electricity in the United States is in decline.
Mm-hmm.
Last year it went down 7.5%. A 7.5% decline is significant. This is the natural gas producers have seen a slight increase, 1% increase last year, because they're exporting natural gas. But it's not natural gas that's knocking out nuclear power. It's renewables. And this switch is telling you something about what the market is doing in terms of, I mean, $110 million? If they want to just lose $110 million, I got a pocket I could loan them for it. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on. We got another picture coming.
We do
up here.
indeed. This is also from Clean Technica.
That is from this article.
That is.
U.S. wind capacity surpasses 90 gigawatts as record construction levels continue.
The U.S. wind energy industry currently has a record amount of wind capacity under construction. It just came out of a second quarter which installed 626 megawatts of new capacity, pushing the country's cumulative wind energy capacity total over the 90 megawatt mark. Now, I think maybe it would be good to kind of explain here. I don't know offhand what our nuclear capacity in this country is. We have 99.
I don't know what that number is.
What number?
What our nuclear capacity
No,
is.
I don't either. I should have looked it up before the show today. But we have 99 nuclear plants that are in operation. As a matter of fact, as of today, they're all in operation. None of them is even closed down for refueling, but which is unusual. Usually there's a plant that blew a fuse or is during about 6 months, more than 6 months, during about 8 months or 10 months of the year, there's some plant someplace that is refueling. But during the hottest couple of months of the summer and the coldest couple of months of the winter, they try to have all of them.
Don't refuel, yep.
Yeah. But the thing is, wind capacity does not equal nuclear capacity, and I just want to remind our viewers of this. If you take the nameplate capacity, that's the greatest amount of capacity that the unit can generate. But nuclear plants operate about 92% of the time, and they almost always are at full capacity. Wind plants operate whenever the wind is blowing, and they are usually not at full capacity. So if you take there's a thing called the capacity factor, which is if you take a nuclear plant and you look at it going for a couple of years and you say, this is the nameplate, this is the number of hours that it ran, that it can run, so that's the maximum we could produce if it never shut down, even to refuel. This is what it actually did. You divide the first into the second, and that gives you a percentage, and that percentage is a capacity factor. Same thing with wind power. The capacity factor of nuclear power is, in the United States, it's a little over 90%.
It's way high.
It's high. In the rest of the world, it's more like 82, 83%, and I worry about that difference because I kind of suspect that American nuclear reactor operators are not spending enough time doing refueling, but I don't know that's the case. We don't have a lot of accidents during refueling in this country. In fact, we have very few. But the point is, wind power, you're talking about capacity factors that are on the order of 35% for onshore and maybe 45 to 50% for offshore. So the capacity factor of wind is much lower than the capacity factor of nuclear. The amount of energy you get out of a gigawatt of wind capacity is only going to be 40%, 50% of what you would get out of a nuclear plant with the same capacity. I know that's confusing to a lot of people, and that's why I wanted to explain it.
Well, they're here talking about capacity, not actual use.
That's correct.
Capability.
Yes.
Just to put it in perspective, though, the 90 gigawatts they're talking about, that's the equivalent of 100 Vermonts. Texas's total capacity is 23 gigawatts installed, And they have a quarter
They are
of the
growing.
United States
Yes,
in Texas.
and they're
Well, it's
just
a big
growing
place.
like mad, and the Texans seem to really like wind power.
Well, they seem to.
Yeah,
It's kind of strange, but they do seem to.
yeah. Okay, we're up to Sunday, July 29th, and we've got an item from the BBC. And what's that?
This precious metal is sparking a new gold rush.
And this is a metal that I see often in the news. By often I mean not quite every day, but every other day maybe. Cobalt. Cobalt mining has not happened at any sort of scale in the United States for decades. But a handful of mining companies are staking claims at sites in Idaho, Montana, and Alaska. Interest in cobalt is growing because it's a key component in the lithium-ion batteries that power electronic devices and electric cars.
Well, one thing that's happening now is in the past, they didn't go to mine cobalt. It was a byproduct.
Yeah,
They were getting copper or nickel,
yeah,
you know, and then there was this cobalt they didn't know what to do with. And all of a sudden, there's a market for it.
Yes.
So they're starting to open cobalt mines.
yeah.
And interesting, of most of the cobalt in the world is in the Congo.
Yes, and there's child labor extensive.
Yeah.
Getting that, and it's that is difficult, and there are a lot of people who have got ethical problems with the ethics of that. But also the price of cobalt has just gone through the roof. And you know what it reminds me of, Tom? I used to work in chemical plants, and one of the plants where I worked was an old company that was operated by a family. And these were wonderful people, you know, just wonderful people in New Jersey, a family called Kleinhans. And they had this little chemical plant, but they'd been around for a long time, and they had stories about how their grandfather wanted to distill sulfuric acid. Can you imagine doing such a thing? And the only thing that could hold it was gold.
Is that so?
So they had to build a still out of gold.
Oh, boy.
And he decided that instead of building the still out of gold, he was going to build it out of something else that he believed could withstand it, and then plate that with gold.
Okay.
So what did he build it out of? He built it out of a metal that was a fairly valueless scrap from the gold, from a mining process that is called platinum. And, you know, I laughed about this, and Chuck Kleinhans, one of the owners, said to me, you know, there was a case in Prussia of a contractor who was thrown in jail because he contracted for a zinc roof, which of course today with acid rain would be incredibly dumb to do. But he contracted for a zinc roof, and he adulterated the zinc with platinum because it was cheap.
Times change.
Times change.
Times change.
Okay, and cobalt is like that. It used to be, platinum was a byproduct of mining other metals. They used to throw it away. It was slag.
Yeah.
And
Now it
cobalt,
costs more than gold.
yeah, and cobalt is kind of the same thing. The cobalt that they got was from other mining processes. Okay, should we move on?
We got a picture
spent
coming
too
up
much
here.
time with that. Okay. Oh my goodness gracious. This is
Quite a
called
picture. This is a photograph. It's
That's right.
not a drawing.
This is called the car fire. That is not a misspelling of the word car and a
No.
misrepresentation of a house burning down as a car. This
I've
is
been hearing about the car
called
fire
the
on the news.
car file. Called the car fire. This is from Common Dreams.
Hottest 4 years ever? 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. Wow.
Quote, the impacts of climate change are no longer subtle, end quote. The director of the Earth System Science Center at Payne State University told CNN, quote, we are seeing them play out in real time in the form of unprecedented heat waves, floods, droughts, and wildfires. We've seen all of those this summer, and the summer ain't over yet.
And this again from the article. There is no doubt that the prolonged extreme temperatures and floods we're witnessing around the world right now are a result of climate change.
You know, there are people who are still denying climate change, and I have to say I think that they are either paid to deny climate change or they're just in denial, psychologically.
Hard to say. Probably more of them are paid one way
Well,
or
you know,
another.
if you think about it, Willie Soon was paid $1 million, apparently, to produce articles over a 10-year period that said human-caused climate change was not happening.
Yeah.
And there was a scandal about that because he was required to talk about financial sources to disclose them to the publications that he was doing this with, but he failed to do that.
Right.
And they were upset when they found out that he had failed to do this thing that he was required to do. And but he was paid by ExxonMobil, he was paid by Koch Industries, he was paid, you know, apparently, this is my recollection, it might have been not Koch Industries, but Freedom Partners, or, you know, one of those other organizations that are associated with them. But the fossil fuel companies were paying people, Willie Soon and other scientists, including their own, who they had, you know, telling them that climate change was happening, and they were telling them, don't tell anybody. So I think that, yeah. Anyway, should we move on, or have you got more on that?
I said what I was going to say about that one, so let's move on to the next one.
Our next one is from CNN.
EPA reverses a Pruitt-era rule on diesel emissions.
This is interesting to me because no sooner did Pruitt get out of office than the EPA, which was taken over by somebody who was appointed by Donald Trump and is a Trump supporter, starts undoing the stuff that Pruitt did, where Pruitt was undoing the stuff that was done under the Obama administration. The EPA will now enforce an Obama-era rule that limits diesel truck emissions, reversing one of the final decisions of the Pruitt era. In a memo, Acting Administrator Wheeler listed problems with Pruitt's replacement rule, but did not say whether a different replacement was to come. And some of these problems were, I think, substantial.
Well, this particular article talks about what they call glider trucks.
Yes.
And in glider trucks, they take a new truck, take the engine out, and put it in an old engine from an old truck because they're cheaper to run.
Yeah.
And they pollute.
Yeah.
Which is why they're cheaper to run.
Yeah.
And that's what this is all about. So.
Well, one of the things that I found interesting was that the Pruitt change was suggested within the EPA and actually turned into a rule in one day, which meant that they didn't get any feedback from anybody about whether this was a good idea or not.
They just said, let's.
Yes.
Huh. Interesting.
So we are up to Monday, July 30th.
Yeah, we got a nice picture coming up.
We have a picture here. That picture, by the way, is a picture of flooding in Iowa, but I want to mention this is not from this year, it's from last year.
Yeah, you can see that river in the background overflowing the farmers' fields.
That's right.
Latest climate change projections ominous for Iowa.
In 1991, climate scientists believed that climate change in the Midwest would lead to warmer and wetter climate, including warmer winters and more rain in the spring and early summer. They were right. New climate projections for Iowa may make you sweat and build a dam around your home if you live there.
Well, they were right, but they were righter than they wanted to be.
Oh. Yeah, well, one of the things that I'm seeing, and I'm seeing this often, is that the projections that were done in the past about climate change were wrong. But they were not wrong because they projected that something was going to happen that didn't happen. They were wrong because what they projected was not enough change to represent what actually has taken place.
Where is the Gazette from here that we got this?
The Gazette, this Gazette is, well, it's from Iowa.
Iowa.
It's a local Iowa paper.
Because the article had mentioned Vermont a lot.
Yeah, I believe this was an Iowa paper. Anybody
This came from the article.
Yeah.
Our winters are getting, well, maybe it came from your remarks on the article. Our winters are getting warmer and shorter. threatening winter sports and tourism and making Vermont more habitable to ticks that carry Lyme disease. And summer days are getting hotter.
That's correct. But that was the Gazette, and I think the
That
Gazette
came out of
was
the
in
Gazette.
Des Moines,
Okay,
as I think about it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
let's move on.
Renew Economy, next item. And Renew Economy is an Australian place, so this might be about
This
Australia.
is, if you like graphs, this is a good article. There's
Yep.
lots of graphs in it.
Yep.
Renewables beat fossil fuels and are getting cheaper.
A study by Bernstein is an Australian group, as I recall, documents the persistent drop in the levelized cost of electricity from renewable generation with projections of future cost potentials. It argues that the cost of wind power and solar power is likely to be well below the cost of fossil fuel generation nearly everywhere.
I'm looking to see. The global installed wind capacity has been steadily growing.
Yes.
Okay. The solar capacity passed 400 gigawatts by the end of 2017 and shows more considerable growth potential.
Yes.
Okay. Concentrated solar power, which is where you use the heat of the sun
Yes.
rather than the light of the
Yes.
sun. And it's lost momentum, but it's coming back because it enables you to store
Yes.
the energy.
Yep.
Okay.
And-
And this added storage is quite useful.
Yep. And one of the things that, that I keep thinking about whenever I see this is this thing, I've mentioned it before in the show.
Yeah.
People really haven't gone into it. It is real. It's a thing called Wright's Law. And it says with a new technology, the cost of the technology is going to decline in a way which is a function of the number of units that have been put into the field.
Yeah.
And what that means is, as you have a new technology like automobiles, for example, and you build more cars, the cost goes down. And it's going to go down at a rate which is logarithmic and associated with the number of cars. So when they started building new cars, the first one was extremely expensive. The second one was nowhere near as expensive. The third one, and it goes down. And then you hit this thing where Henry Ford said, I'm going to decrease the number of hours that people are working. I'm going to increase their pay.
Everybody thought he was nuts.
Everybody thought he was nuts. And I'm going to cut the price of the car so that anybody can afford it. And,
So my workers can afford it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And it all worked because they were just building more and more cars and the price was going down. And the thing that he introduced was this assembly line for manufacturing them. Well, the same thing has happened with computers.
Oh, sure,
And
absolutely.
I've mentioned this, the price of a gigaflops, the hardware needed to produce gigaflops in 1961, according to an article in Wikipedia, was $157 billion. And in 2017, it was 3 cents. So
It's quite a decline.
it's quite a decline. And I've been thinking about this, and the thought that I've got is the more complex the technology is, the steeper that decline is going to be. Because every single part of the whole technology has got some place that you can tweak it. And people are going to be tweaking these things like mad. Solar is not terribly complex compared to computers. But nevertheless, the price of solar is going down.
Definitely.
And this economic law says it will continue to go down. It's predictable. Same thing for wind, same thing for batteries. So, all right, we're at a point now where solar and wind and batteries are you put the three of them together and you've got something that's cheaper than coal or natural gas. Or
Well, it
certainly
took a
nuclear.
while for the technology to catch up and permit this to happen.
Yep.
But it's marching on now. It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. And if it's that way now, it's going to be below that next year and below that the next year.
Well, if you don't have to pay for your fuel, you're
Yeah.
way ahead of the game.
And, now we're having already, and we've reported this in the past, we're seeing utility executives saying anybody who builds a new natural gas plant is out of his mind.
Yeah.
And we're seeing utilities companies saying we are no longer going to build these plants. We're going to shut the plants we've got down.
It's happening.
It's happening. So, Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, this is a different tack, but
Yep.
it's still interesting. The EV, the electrical vehicle safety advantage.
This is from Clean Technica. Electric cars are now known for being quick. Believe it or not, they are known for being quick.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. They are known for being clean, certainly that's true. They are known for being quiet and smooth to drive, again. However, one of their biggest benefits is something that is seldom discussed or even acknowledged. Major independent government agencies rate EVs as the safest cars to drive. And there's
Well, that's not the message that you're hearing, though.
No, it's
you
not.
You hear about, oh, this Tesla caught on fire.
Yeah, a Tesla catches on fire, so it's
news.
national news. A Studebaker catches fire or whatever, and it's like nobody cares because it happens
I had a fire in a car once. Yeah.
Every 2 minutes.
Is it
In
really?
the United States, another car catches fire. And I have seen several car fires that were stunning because those vehicles were they were burning like somebody threw gasoline on them. I wonder why that happened.
I wonder where the gas came from. Huh?
Yeah, I wonder where. And of course, you have certain cars that are notorious for having gas tanks that break open in accidents.
Well, I don't know if it's in this article or not, but I recently saw a video
Yes?
of fires in a highway.
Yeah.
That's really quite scary.
We had it last week.
Was it with
Yeah,
the...
we had there was a video last week that, and I forget what the article was, but it was about automotive fires, and
Yeah.
I think there must have been 15 car fires in that one thing, and some of them were not very impressive, but some of them were just stunning. I mean, explosions and things.
Just out of the blue. They're driving along and all of a sudden, boom.
And it's one of the things that's amazing to me is the number of these vehicles where the vehicle blows up and then the next thing you see is the door open and the person in it get out.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to imagine that those people were not really badly burned. But anyway, should we go on?
I'm just trying to think. Well, one thing that people don't think about.
Yeah.
Electrical vehicles are so quiet that pedestrians can't always hear them coming.
There have been proposals that electric vehicles have special tires that are noisy.
They are now requiring the vehicles to make some noise.
Some noise.
Yep.
Okay, we are up to Tuesday, July
We're moving
31st.
along. We got a nice picture.
We have a
coming up
picture here. That, by the way, is a cooling towers, and you can see kind of the plant in the background. The orange-colored cooling towers and transmission lines at a nuclear power plant in Germany. I forget the name of it.
It
but
looks like it's pollution, but it's
that's
steam.
That's
It's not bad.
condensation. Yeah. This is from Think Progress.
Nuclear power is ridiculously expensive compared to solar, says a longtime nuclear advocate.
A longtime nuclear industry advocate and former head of the International Energy Agency, and I would assume that this guy knows what he's talking about, now says nuclear is too expensive compared to solar. Meanwhile, Bloomberg has repeatedly shown existing nuclear power plants are bleeding cash in quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let it be written that environmentalists did not kill the nuclear power industry, economics did.
Yes. Well, that I think is true, and that, you know, the experience in Vermont Yankee, the various organizations that opposed it, some of them were very effective in getting their specific things done, but the overall reason why that plant was closed was very largely because it was just too expensive to operate.
That's the bottom line, really. Economics.
Yeah, it is.
Economics did.
Okay.
This is a good article coming up. It's
Yeah.
a long article. It's a local article, and it's called Greenhouse Gas Worsens Just as Climate Commission Releases Report.
This is from Vermont Biz.
So it's pretty local.
It's pretty local. The Vermont Climate Action Report sets forth goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and dealing with effects of climate change. It also contains discouraging news about the rise of greenhouse gas emissions in Vermont, which will make achieving ambitious goals challenging.
Well, in the U.S., greenhouse gas per capita emissions are dropping, but slowly.
Mm-hmm.
In Vermont, it's rising slowly.
Yeah.
And why is that happening?
Well, half of our emissions come from vehicles. We have almost no emissions of greenhouse gases coming from electricity generation.
There's not much electricity generation within Vermont.
There's more than there used to be after when Vermont Yankee closed. We're adding capacity, but not a huge amount of capacity. And there's very little capacity in Vermont that uses natural gas, which is the only greenhouse gas that we use for generating. And most of our power comes from what are called clean sources, including one nuclear plant in New Hampshire. But
and we're getting Hydro-Quebec.
Most of our a lot of our power. I don't know that it's most, but certainly a lot of our power is coming from Hydro-Quebec. But we have a lot of vehicles, and 50% approximately of our greenhouse gas emissions come from those vehicles. And we've got a lot of people heating with oil.
It's a mental thing with the marketplace.
Yeah.
People are less concerned with how warm they keep their homes, and are steering away from lower mileage vehicles.
Yeah. Well, it's depressing, but nevertheless, it is what it is. It's something that we have to deal with.
I guess.
And you know, it goes to show you that efficiency, for example, if we can increase efficiency levels, it's going to be good. So we should probably move on.
I think we can. We've got a picture coming up here.
We do have a picture of a solar array in China. This is from etenergyworld.com.
Solar panel glut is muting the effect of Trump tariffs on imports.
A steep global decline in the price of solar modules is nearly offsetting the effect of the Trump administration's 30% tariff on imported panels, the chief executive of SunPower said. The module price has dropped 12% since China reduced internal incentives. So this is really interesting. The Trump administration has put a 30% tariff on solar panels.
Yeah.
And what did the Chinese do?
They stopped making them.
They told their solar panel manufacturers, by the way, you know, you may have a problem with the United States, but we're going to reduce the incentives for putting solar panels up in China.
Yeah.
Which sounds like it's exactly the wrong response.
I would think.
But what they're doing is they're encouraging the export of those solar panels to all over the world.
Which is dropping the prices.
Which is, yeah, the China is now dumping solar. We were worried about China dumping solar panels.
So now
they're dumping solar panels. And we can't do anything about it because they're not dumping them in the United States.
Yeah.
And the Indians have said, well, we're going to put a big tariff on solar panels. Well, I got news for you. India is a place that only makes 5%. They have solar panel makers, but only for 5% of their demand. Where do their panels come from? China and Malaysia. So if they put a tariff on, the only effect that's going to have is going to be to increase the price of solar power.
Yeah.
You see, so this is a very complicated thing. I don't think Donald Trump
doesn't make sense.
I don't think Donald Trump understood what was going on. But the result of this is China is building trade relations all over the world.
Yep.
Because the United States, it's not directly because, but partly as a result of the United States imposing a tariff that the Chinese don't like. The Chinese are taking advantage of this. And the Chinese are taking advantage, I believe, of Donald Trump. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, August 1st, unless you've got more about that.
Massachusetts passes a compromise clean energy bill.
A compromise clean energy bill was passed by Massachusetts lawmakers, though it is less ambitious than the bill the state Senate passed in June. The legislation, which is now going to the governor's desk, quote, falls far short, end quote, of the state's version, the Sierra Club said. This is from Renewables now, and this was a mixed bag. There were lots and lots and lots of articles on this, and some of them were saying this bill is terrible. It's not what we need. And others were saying this is a great bill. It's going to, it just depends upon your point of view.
Well, the article says that the Massachusetts legislature took baby steps on clean energy legislation,
right,
when what is needed are giant strides.
Right, and I think this is probably one of the most even-handed articles I've seen on the subject. So that's the reason I wanted to take this. But a lot of different views on this. So.
Well, in the background, we got a picture coming up.
Yep.
And it looks to me like a lot of forks
and
spoons.
It's forks and spoons. Hello. We have a visitor coming in.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Let's see if I can't find that picture.
This is from Clean Technica. The picture is right there. And yeah, it's forks and spoons. So you have a title?
Yeah, what we're seeing with those forks and spoons are biodegradable plastics. And the title is Demand for Biodegradable Plastics Expected to Surge. This is an interesting and a very important article.
Yeah.
I think if anybody reads an article this week, this is the one they should read.
It's not my pick, but we should have your pick and my pick of the week. You want to do that next week? Biodegradable plastics is a double-digit growth industry coming into its own from increased regulations and bans against plastic bags and other single-use plastic items. Concerns about plastic waste in the environment are contributing to worldwide demand for biodegradable plastics. This is from Clean Technica. And
well, what it's saying is that not all plastics are bad. That we can make plastics that will biodegrade, and you can put them in a landfill and they go away.
Many of the really earliest plastics were manufactured from casein, and they would just degrade. Mm-hmm. They're what are called milk plastics. Okay, you want to move on?
They make them from starch now.
They can, yeah. There are other things. We have one more item, and we should do it. So, oops.
No, we don't need the picture.
We don't need a picture.
And I guess I pushed the wrong button here.
That's okay. You're allowed to push the wrong button sometimes. Here we have an item from Clean Technica.
UK clean electricity surpassed 50% in 2017 as renewables soar.
The latest figures published by the UK government show that renewable and clean energy sources continued to skyrocket, hitting 29.3% and 50.1% respectively, and led another strong year in wind energy generation. Clean energy, by the way, is defined as renewable energy plus nuclear, which is not something that I would call clean, but nevertheless, that's the way they have it.
Well, it's debatable. It's an arguable thing. Well, there's some figures here. Wind generated a record total of 50 terawatt hours for the year.
Yep.
Anytime you see the word tera, it's big. That was half of all renewable energy generation. Now, we're talking about UK here.
Yeah.
It is UK's cheapest power source.
Yep.
Hydro increased to 6 terawatt hours.
Yes.
Solar increased to 11.5.
Yep.
Okay.
Tom,
coal generation fell by 70%.
We're going to have to close because we're coming to the end of our.
Well, this is our last article.
Yes, I know that.
Gas generation, which accounts for the majority of the UK's electricity supply, decreased by 5% in 2017.
Right.
So they're moving in the right direction, I guess.
We have a visitor in the studio, and for those people who want to know who it is,
now.
you can go to. I think it's probably going to be on Channel 8. So switch over there and watch an interview with Valerie Stewart. And we'll see you soon, I hope. You want to click up and say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, I guess we can.
We can do that.
We can.
Okay.
I'm a little bit confused here.
You're a little confused. I'm confused too.
Here we go.
Bye, everybody.